Well, hello, everybody. A very warm welcome along to Sportsbet TV. My name's Paul Alster. I'm the racing tipster on this service, and I'm back with three selections for for tomorrow, actually, as it is for Saturday, the 18th of December. This bulletin is being recorded just before Friday lunchtime, and all the odds that I mentioned will be correct at the time of recording. If you're discovering us for the first time, please press the subscribe button just below this screen. And what I can tell you is that we are looking forward not only to this weekend's racing, but of course, looking forward to Christmas, despite all the uncertainties that there are in the air. And then, of course, straight after Christmas, onto the great Boxing Day racing. And I'll be posting a bulletin for you on Christmas Eve. So look out for that, where I'll be going into some depth about my fancies over the Christmas period. So do remember to make a note of joining me for that. Now, three selections for today, as I mentioned. Last week, well, not for the first time of late, we've been struggling to get the winners in, which is something that does happen when you're tipping at fairly big odds. But as regular followers will know, I'm showing a very big profit over the period of the last year and indeed the last season. But this last weekend, we had two placed and two of them just out of the money. Bit frustrating, really. Midnight Shadow ran a massive race in the big event at Cheltenham to be third at 8-1. He held every chance going to the last, just couldn't peg back Cool Coldy. And then Jet, who I made very clear you should bet the three places for at Doncaster. Well, he went off at 12-1, remarkably. And it looked as if three places weren't going to be required, because after the last, he jumped back into the lead. He traded at 9-4 run on the exchanges, but was just run out of it in a desperate finish, finishing third. So the each-way money was safe if you followed my advice. And the other two, well, Bundoran, he stayed on well late to finish fourth to Editor Dugit at Cheltenham. Too Friendly was a bit disappointing, I thought, only fourth. So again, just missing out on the each-way money in the Grade 2 race at Doncaster. So a bit of crossbar rattling last week. I'm hoping that these three selections this Saturday are going to do the business, and I'm pretty confident as well. Let me take you to the first of them. It's at Ascot in the 225 race, which is one of the best staying races of the year. It's the Grade 1 long walk hurdle. It is over 3 miles. There are 9 runners. The forecast ground is good to soft. And it's always a hot race, and no exception this year with Buzz forecast, the 2-1 favourite. A horse I like very much, Nicky Henderson's Buzz, the winner of the Coral Hurdle last time out over nearly 2.5 miles, having previously won the Cesarewitch on the flat over 2.25 miles. So although he's going into unknown territory up to 3 miles over hurdles, I think few people would say that they are doubtful that he would see out the trip. But is he value? That is the question, going up to Grade 1 for the first time. So interesting to see how he goes, but certainly the run of his win at Ascot has been frank, with God Your Dreams third and Song for Someone, who was second, filling the first two places in the international hurdle at Cheltenham last weekend. Now, another very good stayer is Time Hill for Philip Hobbs. And to be honest, I was surprised when I checked to see he's only a 7-year-old, of course, rising 8 now, but he seems to have been around a long time. He won the Grade 1 Stayers Hurdle at the Aintree Festival in April, and he previously finished second in this race last year to Paisley Park. And good old Paisley Park is going to reoppose once again. He should be better for the run that he had in France in November, whereas Paisley Park, well, Emma Lavelle's star may be on the wane. He just hasn't shown that spark in his runs of late, and although they put a tongue tie on for the first time, it will have to make quite a difference, I think, for him to bounce back to winning form and defend his title in this race. Now, one horse who's always promised so much and has delivered on occasions is Champ, the second of Nicky Henderson's runners. He, of course, won the Grade 1 RSA Chase at the 2020 Cheltenham Festival with that incredible late finish. That was just quite unbelievable to get up and win in between horses in the last 25 yards or so. He has been very lightly raced since then, only 2 runs since, and the last of them was when pulling up in the Cheltenham Gold Cup. So it looks like they're kind of going back to the drawing board a bit with him, but he is so talented that you couldn't rule out him running a good race. Now, the Irish have an interesting runner here called Ronald Pump, and he's to be feared. He was second to Lisnagar Oscar, who's also going to take his chance Saturday, but isn't the force of old. But Ronald Pump, who was second to Lisnagar Oscar in the 2020 Cheltenham Festival Stayers Hurdle, ran a really good race last time out against the unbeaten supermare Honeysuckle over in Ireland. And that was only over 2.5 miles. So that should have put him spot on. And he is to be feared. But there is one horse I think has quite a big chance here. And that is the horse trained by Ollie Murphy. And this horse is called Thomas Derby. Thomas Derby is the mount of Fergus Gregory for the informed Ollie Murphy stable. He's always been a bit talented, this horse, and equally quirky. And most of his racing career has been at 2 and 2.5 miles. He was third in the Grade 2 Yorkhill hurdle over 2 miles 5 at Cheltenham last season and behind Fabulous. And later, they decided to step him up to 3 miles for the first time. And that was in the Aintree hurdle won by Time Hill. And he actually ran very well, only beaten 4.5 lengths into third. So that they got this sense, I think, that maybe 3 miles is actually his trip. And he was better for his first run of the season, went fourth in the West Yorkshire hurdle at Wetherby. And then last time out, he stayed on really well to beat on the blind side in the Grade 2 long distance hurdle. And that was a terrific effort. And I think that has finally seen him come of age at this trip. They've discovered the key to the horse. And another significant point here when looking for value is that he's rated the same as Buzz, mark of 155. Buzz is 2 to 1, but each way there's 10 to 1 available at the time of this recording with 888. William Hill have also got 4 places. Not sure if that's still there at 10 to 1, but it is there with 888. So I think Thomas Derby could be the up-and-coming horse at this trip, and the value to beat the horse that is a huge danger, which is the market favourite Buzz. That's in the 225 race at Ascot. And my second selection on Saturday is at Haydock in Lancashire. The 3 mile handicap hurdle there at 3:15 is a really interesting, intriguing race, really. It's on soft ground. Stamina is really going to come into play here for the 12 runners who are set to face the starter at 3:15. Now, the horse they're making favourite is a horse trained by Dr. Richard Newland called Seeyouatmidnight, who's an ex-French racer. He's around 7 to 2 favourite at the time of this recording. And he's only a 6-year-old, and he's been going very well since he joined Richard Newland, winning twice at 2.5 miles in handicap hurdles at Worcester and Sandown. And then he stepped up to nearly 3 miles at Market Raisin last time out, was the rock-solid second. So he's an unexposed horse, could be improving still, and he is the forecast favourite at 7 to 2. Now, there's a horse here called Ballymilsey, who some of you may recall that I tipped last time it ran. It's trained by Nigel Twiston Davis. It is a horse who he's promised quite a lot, and I thought he was going to go really well last time out at Cheltenham, but he was only 5th of 9. He was disappointing, and the stewards actually inquired into why he'd run so poorly. And Nigel Twiston Davis could give no explanation at all. He just didn't have a clue, just said the horse had an off day. He previously won well over 3.25 miles at Newton Abbot, so he should stay. And Nigel Twiston Davis has won this very race twice in the last 5 renewals, so he is to be feared, I think. Is he going to bounce back, though? I'm just a little bit uneasy about that poor run last time. Now, Sultan's Pride represents Gillian Bonas from the north. A good strike rate in the north this horse has. Won at Kelso over 3.25 miles last time out and is up £5. And making its debut for the Dan Skelton yard is Paddle Your Own Canoe, who used to be with Colin Tizard, showed signs of ability and quite a bit of promise, but he's been off for 15 months and obviously has had some sort of an issue. I think the market could prove informative for Paddle Your Own Canoe. If there is money for him, then it could be that he's set to run a big race despite the absence. But my choice here is one that most people will probably have been discarding at the very first glance. But I think when you look at this horse's form, there's more to him than meets the eye. And his name is Mulcahy's Hill, and he's trained by Warren Greatrix. and is the mount of the £7 conditional rider Colin Quinn. And this horse has been useful in the past. I mean, really useful. He was beat just a short head in the Grade 1 Challow Hurdle a few years ago. He also won 2 years ago, beating Holstone in a hot novice chase over 3 miles at Cheltenham. But like so many horses in the jump sphere, he's had training issues on and off and been very lightly raced. Indeed, his penultimate run was actually in the 2020 Ultima Handicap chase at the Cheltenham Festival, where he ran off a mark of 144, finished in the mid-division. And then he was off for 21 months, so he obviously had quite a serious issue, and he had a wind surgery as well, just to help his breathing. So when he returned at Sandown, just a couple of weeks ago on the 3rd of December, you could have been easily forgiven for expecting that he'd need the run. He'd been dropped to a mark of 137, running back over hurdles over 3 miles. And to be honest, for most of the way, he was out the back and not doing anything. But then as they turned in and started to climb the hill, he managed to pass 1 or 2. And although he still finished down the field in 9th, I watched the race through after they finished across the line. And as a race reader in the past, I noticed that this horse really was going on at the finish, which means that he was actually only really getting into his stride just as they were approaching the finish, and he was passing horses who were knackered. So for me, that shows that his breathing seems to be fine. And also in the parade ring prior to the race, he did look very big and burly, as if he's been really enjoying his snap over the last few months. So I think he's going to strip fitter. I think he's proven that his breathing is okay. And he's been dropped £5 since then, down to 132. And then when you add in the £7 claim of Colin Quinn, he's down to just 125. Now, for a horse who was competing over fences and just beaten in a Grade 1 hurdle off much higher ratings, this suggests that if he retains the majority of his old ability, he could be a force to be reckoned with. And I think it's worth taking a chance at big odds. And because of that, I'm suggesting an each-way bet here at 18 to 1. That's the best price on offer at the time of this recording, but it wouldn't be at all surprising to me to see him drift out to 20 and 25s when the market really starts hotting up. The 18 to 1 available for 4 places with William Hill. But as I say, I wouldn't be surprised if he drifts. If he shortens, then that in itself will be a good sign as well, because it means there may be some real stable confidence behind him. So Mulcahy's Hill at Haydock in the 3:15 is my second selection. And then to my final choice for Saturday, the 18th of December. And it's a red-hot race at Ascot. The 3:35 is the £105,000 Betfair Exchange Trophy Handicap Hurdle. Good to soft ground, 14 runners. They're betting around 9 to 2 the field or thereabouts. And with so many of these type of races, as always, horses are targeted and laid out to try and be at their peak for these big prize money races. And that might well be the case here with Goshen, who I think is really interesting for Gary Moore. You'll all remember Goshen, of course. 2020 Triumph Hurdle, one of the big gambles of the festival meeting, comes down towards the last, only has to jump it, and then that moment of confusion between jockey and horse, and of course he tripped over his own hoof, believe it or not, and managed to unseat his rider when the bookies were riding for a very big fall, but in the end they got away with it. Now, he hasn't seen quite the same horse since, it has to be said, but he did win the Grade 2 in February of this year by 22 lengths, beating Song for Someone. I think it was at Wincanton. So he is a horse who on his day can still show great form, Goshen. And I've noticed that Gary Moore has been pretty bullish when interviewed about Goshen's chance, first time in a handicap here with a mark of 153, which for a horse who had champion hurdle pretensions at the start of last season is potentially a good mark. So I don't rule out a big run from the enigmatic force that is Goshen. He's around 10 to 1. Now, a lot of the form in this race revolves around the Great Wood Handicap Hurdle from Cheltenham a few weeks ago, won by West Cork, the horse of Dan Skelton's, who came home really well, finishing powerfully up the hill towards the stands rails. He beat a horse I really like called Adagio. In that race, No Ordinary Joe for Nicky Henderson was in third. beaten 2 3/4 lengths. He's £4 better off, so there shouldn't be a huge amount between West Cork and No Ordinary Joe. Now, another horse of interest, unexposed for Paul Nicholls, is Samareve, who's won 3 of his 4 career starts, including a listed handicap hurdle last time out at Sandown. He's gone up £11, but he's gone up from a fairly low rating, so there could be more to come. And of course, the champion trainer says it all. You have to respect him. And another horse from that Greatwood hurdle is Tritonic, who I tipped that day. He ran on to be 5th in the big field there. Wouldn't surprise me if he gets closer to the likes of West Cork and No Ordinary Joe, but my feeling looking at that race was that he might need a little bit further, and maybe 2.5 miles could be his trip. So after giving it quite a code of looking at, my choice is a horse here called One More for the Road, and it's trained by Neil King, a very much underrated trainer, and ridden by Bryony Frost, who of course has been in the news for all sorts of reasons of late, and all power to her, I say. She's, I think, a very impressive young woman and a terrific jockey, as she showed when winning the Tingle Creek the other week on Grenadine. So she's riding One More for the Road for Neil King, who supported her for many years. And this horse is a 6-year-old who's won 5 of his 8 starts over hurdles. Indeed, he's won 5 of his last 6 races. He's in absolutely cracking form. He's won all 3 races this term. He won at Stratford in a novice hurdle off 126 in October. And then he went to Huntingdon into a handicap, winning off 127 quite comfortably. And then last time out, he went to Newbury for a listed handicap hurdle where there were some very good horses, including the likes of Soaring Glory and Captain Morgs, and he made all the running, jumped like a buck. And when the cavalry came for him, he just found a little bit extra, pinged the last and stayed on. Now, it was only a 4-runner race, but it was a hot race. Remember, Soaring Glory is a very talented horse who won last season, very valuable Betfair hurdle at Newbury. And I think that form is hot. And he's now up to a mark of 136. And I wonder whether the handicapper has just taken a chance with this horse. I think that he's still possibly a stride ahead of the handicapper. And I also think that if he was trained by a more fashionable handler, he would be even more prominent in the betting than he is already. So I do think he's got a big chance here. Now, when I looked at the race for the first time Thursday evening, he was a 10-to-1 chance with quite a few firms. But this Friday morning, that price has gone, suggesting there is a bit of money and a bit of confidence behind him. Some of the 9-to-1 has gone. Still a few firms betting, such as Ladbrokes and Corals, offering the 9-to-1. Others are getting a bit jittery and have gone down to 8. So if you can get on when you see this recording at 9-to-1, then I would take it. One More for the Road is my choice to win that very valuable race, and it will be a huge prize for Neil King and another feather in the cap of the excellent Bryony Frost. So that is my third and final selection here at Sportsbet TV this weekend. Just a reminder that if you're interested in following my tips for horses more towards the head of the market, I've been going great guns with 9 of my last 17 selections winning over at freebets.com. So check that out at this address on the YouTube service. And in fact, this particular bulletin coming up this weekend, there's 1 or 2 you might even be interested in, including in Yankees and things with these 3, because certainly one of them is an each way prize. So that's free bets, but here at Sportsbet, thanks very much for joining me. And remember to join me again on Christmas Eve as I look ahead to all the fantastic Boxing Day racing with some absolute crackerjack action to come in the next week or so. But for now, from me, Paul Alster, enjoy your weekend, stay well, look after yourself. Bye for now.